Bill Carroll, Sydney 62 Media, and a belated Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. And I just want to thank every mother in the world because it is perhaps the world's toughest job and no one pays you for it. So, please accept that from me. I'm going to begin with the last and final position group that I'll be breaking down, and that is the cornerbacks. Now, I'm pleased in that my number one cornerback went very, very early, went pick 20 to the Denver Broncos. That's Jahdae Barron. I think he has a chance to play almost anywhere in the secondary. I think he's a fantastic football player, and I am excited for what the future holds for him. And obviously, he's in a great situation. It's already a secondary that has a real strong talent base, and he's going to add to it. Smart, a player that takes the right angle, I would say probably over 90% of the time. Good ball skills, very good athlete. Then we come to Maxwell Harrison, freakish athlete, doesn't always take the right angle, doesn't always tackle as consistently as you'd like, all the time. But once again, goes to the Buffalo Bills. They could use that infusion of athletic ability in their secondary, and he will see the field immediately. In fact, everyone I'm going through will see the field, at least at this point, will see the field early. Will Johnson coming off an injury, but as soon as he's good to go, he'll be out there on the field. At pick 47, he goes to the Cardinals, a player that probably would have gone 20 to 25 picks earlier if not for his injuries. Then we come to Benjamin Morrison. That's an interesting player. Benjamin Morrison is some people's, number 2 or number 3 corner, but he has a hip injury, and that is a position where, injuries of anything, any part of the lower body are a concern if you are a corner. But the hip, if you've ever run even a single corner drill, and I was mostly a safety, but I've gone through corner drills before, they're mostly hip-based, right? Your hips are your moneymaker to some extent if you are a corner. Ball skills, confidence, balance, footwork, hips is right there, right? Amongst the most important things to be a good corner. So hopefully Morrison can come all the way back, but he had a great career at Notre Dame. He's probably more a zone than a man guy. Then we come to Trey Amos. Once again, classic man press type corner, goes to Commanders pick 61. That's a really good value pick. There were people that had him going to the Buffalo Bills at 30. So that tells you some of the value that they just got with that selection. Now I have circled as one of the what I call Al Davis Memorial picks. Darian Porter is an older prospect, 24 years old, but raw despite that because he's only had 7 starts at corner. Big, fast, right? He's going to play in the low 200s. He's well over 6'2". He's super fast, super athletic, but raw, right? And people sometimes compare him to other late conversions from wide receiver to corner, but the big difference is just how raw he still is. But he's going to help you right away on special teams. Even for a guy who's sort of a late conversion, he's just had so little full-time use on defense. But if he ends up being the best of all the corners, well, it would surprise me. But it wouldn't shock me just because he's so talented. But like I said, you're putting a lot on your coaching staff because he's so raw. Then we come to Azrae Thomas, a player, I like certain things about him, but another player whose tackling is not always consistent on tape. Another big corner, not quite as sudden as a guy like Porter, though, right? I worry a little bit about how he gets back in phase. I worry a little bit about his backpedal, right? So if you keep him from backpedaling, you put him in like a shuffle bail or something where he's just sort of going to a spot or coming downhill, he'd be a better player than if you asked him to turn and burn with especially some of the quicker and more sudden receivers. Then my second most intriguing of all the corner prospects is next. I'm a big Siobhan Revell guy. He was in my top 5. In fact, he was my number 4 corner. And I like a lot about Revell. Now, 2 things that worry you. Once again, another older prospect and another injured prospect. But my understanding is that in all the off-season testing before his injury, he tested well, big frame, fits what the Cowboys like. Another guy with great ball skills. Tackling is, once again, sometimes. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But, look at who else he's playing with. They clearly are okay with that in Dallas. This is the most surprising of all the picks, is Justin Wally going at pick 80 to the Colts. Look for on Team MBS Media in my talk to Jay Robbins of Stampede Blue to get deeper into that pick and that selection in a piece that will be coming out in a couple of days on Team MBS about the Colts draft and free agency and the offseason. But getting back to that pick, I don't dislike the player. I definitely feel like he would have been there for them a round later, possibly 2 rounds later. And I keep hearing the buzz that he was moving up and people liked him. A lot of times that's what it is, right? A lot of times that's if not full on disinformation, it's things that people heard in order to justify what they wanted to do. Then the next three selections are enormous value in my book. These are players that I had in my top 5 corners. In fact, Jacob Parrish is my number 1 slot corner, and if you thought of him as a corner, then he'd be like my number 3 corner, but which moves one person down. But whatever. I really like Jacob Parrish, and when you think about the things you like about Antoine Winfield II, or even to some extent things you liked about Jahdae Barron, he's got a lot of those same qualities. He's explosive. He's not the biggest guy, but he's tough. He's maybe the best tackler. Certainly one of the best tacklers of the whole group. And he also can go get the football. But what I like most about him is the way how physical he is. He fights through blocks. He'll get you to just take wide receiver screens out of your playbook because of how well he blows those plays up. I'm a huge fan of Jacob Parrish. I desperately wanted him in Pittsburgh. And he's going to be a really good football player. And then right after that, the next selection, that was pick 84, pick 85. So a little run on corners, right? 73 is Thomas, 76 is Ravel, 80 is Wally, 84 is Parrish, 85 is Williams, and then Ranshaw is 88. But let's get back to Noel Williams. Another big, smart corner with tremendous ball skills. If he ends up having the most interceptions of all of the rookie corners, it will not shock me. Now, the Chiefs clearly could use, another corner. They have struggled a bit since, free agency has hit them a little bit of that position. Noel Williams gives them everything they like in that position. And he might be, for just pure ball skills, maybe the best corner to suit up recently for the Chiefs, which I know is saying a lot. But he can be had a little bit in certain situations. He takes the cheese sometimes. And his recovery speed is average. But everything else I like about him is, he got somewhere between, so I have a 100-point scale, and he was an 8 to 9 in almost everything, with the exception of 2 things, like I said, recovery speed and sort of reading sort of high-low situations and taking the right choice. He was a 7 in those areas. But let's move on. Caleb Ranshaw. Oh my gosh. Another player I desperately wanted in Pittsburgh. How is he picked here to the Jaguars to pick 88? This player was in my top 60 and flirted at times with my top 50 prospects. I think Ranshaw is a starter as a rookie, if not immediately, then before the season's out. The Jaguars, I hope they know what they have. I think they will figure out pretty quickly what they have. And at pick 97, we have Jalen Smith, sort of the opposite, a player that I think that's once again, it's not a bad player, but I think he would have been there for them, 20-something, 25-ish picks later. He is a very good athlete. He looks the part. He plays well at times. I just feel like he's going to be a reserve much of his career. I don't always love his instincts. And once again, I definitely am not always a fan of his tackling. I think he can at times execute, as a tackler with almost perfect form, but a lot of times he just throws a shoulder or just kind of dives in there when he could just run through, wrap up and drive someone to the ground. He does that probably about 3 times out of 8 when he could do it more like 7 or 8 times out of 8. So that I don't love that. But he's going to see the field. The Houston Texans have a bright, talented young secondary he'll add to it. Another one of the players I really like, right at pick 100, and he's just outside of my top 100, is Upton Stout from Western Kentucky. All the things I said about Jacob Parrish, but a little less, right? Like, take like 10% off of everything you said about Parrish, and now you get Stout. Once again, tough, feisty, probably plays nickel. Not quite as explosive, not quite as athletic, not quite as powerful as Parrish, but a lot to like about Upton Stout. And once again, I think he's going to be on the field in like dime nickel situations fairly quickly. One of my favorite selections, and one of my favorite of the corner/nickel players, is Quincy Riley. I heard even some talk that he might move to safety. I don't love that because the things that he does best are not things that you do that much at safety. Things I like the player a lot, but I'm going to be honest also about some of his shortcomings. Not always consistent as a tackler, capable tackler, but once again, like I said with Smith, it's a lot of variance between his best and worst tackling tape. And he definitely can get a little nosy. He can go places he's not supposed to go. I think if you simplify certain things early on, you'll get good production. But another guy with really good ball skills and a guy with a sprinting background. I think his 40 time is not reflective of his long speed, right? If a guy have just run 70, 80 yards, which you don't want, obviously, because that means a very big play has happened. But that guy that might run down a player that had a faster 40 might be him because he was a 100, 200 meter champion in the state of South Carolina in high school. Next, we come to Mac McWilliams. Now, there was a lot of buzz on him. Speaking of, like, sort of if we're just rating guys as nickels, he's probably my number 3 nickel. Mac McWilliams is another guy who's a good tackler. A tad undersized for what some people care for or look at. His ball skills are solid, not great. And I think he'll find his way on the field, like I said, as a nickel. He'll be fighting for a spot. The Eagles, his ceiling is a lot like former Eagle Avonte Maddox. Like if everything works out, he could be an Avonte Maddox level player. Then next we come to sort of an opposite kind of player where you're betting on the future with a guy like Jason Marshall. Another guy that you're looking at his body. You're looking at and maybe saying, occasionally holding your nose at certain parts of his tape. He's not terrible on tape, but once again, I know I've used the word inconsistent a lot. I'm going to have to use it again simply because it really applies to this player. If you show me the 3 best games of Jason Marshall, I'm going to have this guy gone middle of round 3. If you show me the 3 worst games of him, I'm waiting until the 7th round and saying I'm just taking a flyer on this guy. So going at pick 150, 5th round is probably splitting the difference. Za Frazier from UTSA. Now, he's not Tariq Woolen, people. Like, first of all, shout out to Tariq Woolen. We follow each other on Twitter. I remember, like, first time I watched Tariq Woolen, when he first moved to corner, I think I had him on my all underappreciated team very quickly. I've never moved a guy up so quickly in my rankings as when he made the jump over from receiver to corner. Frazier is not that, right? He is a good-sized corner with good athletic ability and solid tape. Can he occasionally get beaten just by guys who get on him too quickly? Can he occasionally make some mistakes in what he sees or what he thinks he sees? Sure. But is he a really good value pick 169? Also, yes. I think he's going to be on the field in like some dime, nickel, maybe type situations, and he maybe even has potential starter down the road. Jordan Hancock surprisingly went ahead of his teammate, who we're going to talk about in a moment, Denzel Burke. At pick 170 goes to the Bills. The Bills need everybody they can. All hands on deck in that secondary. Is he a possible safety conversion? Maybe. The things that you like about Hancock, tough, smart, will do whatever's asked of him, including change positions. I don't love him, especially in sort of recovery, like getting back in phase if he comes out of phase. So once again, playing him at safety might alleviate some of that. He's got sort of average. He sees a 6 to 7 in most things that I rate when I look at corners. And he might maybe move up slightly if he moves to safety, but we'll see what happens to him. And then 4 picks later, his teammate, Denzel Burke, who at one point was in almost everybody's top 5 at corners and then played his way down to pick 174 in the 5th round. There's still a good football player there in Denzel Burke. If he becomes an NFL starter in a couple years, I will not be a tiny bit surprised. But he has struggled. Obviously, everyone goes back to the Oregon game. It's not good. Right? I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's not good. He got beaten badly and often, and sometimes the ball didn't go there. It could have been worse. It could have been an even worse day if they had picked on him even more. I don't know if he was struggling with a nagging injury. I don't know if he just was underestimating the players he's facing there in Oregon. But he has a chance to redeem himself. Once again, great value, 174. Another corner I really like. All the things I said, like the next 2 corners, all the things I said about guys not being inconsistent as tacklers, etc., the next 2 guys, that's not an issue. For Dorian Strong, for Virginia Tech, at pick 177. You guessed it, the Bills, who wisely triple-dipped in the secondary. You have a player that I think, worst case scenario, is a terrific special teams player and a possible high-ranked reserve with, I would say, 27.5% chance of being a starter in a couple of years. And I think even if he's a guy that just plays 4 or 5 games here and there due to injury, he'll hold the fort very well. I like Strong a lot. Not a freak athlete. can't flip his hips, quite as well as some of the level guys like, Travis Hunter. I ended up talking about when I talked about receivers. I'll talk about a little bit here because he's not. I guess he's considered more receiver than corner, but I'm going to save him for the end. And then we come to Bill Alcone. I really like this kid. Throw on Western Michigan tape. Look at what he did in practice at the Senior Bowl, and you'll say there's some rawness there. His footwork isn't always the cleanest or the most efficient. He definitely passes up chances to make plays on the ball to just strike people. He's a striker. My comp for him was a poor man's Antrell Roll. And like Antrell Roll, he may eventually find his way to safety. But I like him a lot. Another guy I really wanted in Pittsburgh. That's like one of my compliments. That says, if I want you in Pittsburgh, that's sort of a compliment for the way you play football, even if you're not a perfect prospect. For the Ravens to get him to pick 178, a little bit of a dagger. But terrific football player. He's going to have a solid career. Even if he never becomes a full-time starter, a solid career. I think he's eventually a starter. And you look at what they like. You look at Marlon Humphreys. Look at what they like in the corner position. I mean, if you stand him next to Marlon Humphrey, it's like, oh, right? And they've had guys like that in the past, right? They like big, tough corners. And he's that. Marcus Harris next. Yes, Cal, your secondary. Marcus Harris is obviously not Noah Williams because he's going at picks, 183 to the Titans. But he's going to, once again, give you some contribution. Maybe he never becomes a full-time starter, but I like him a great deal just as a player. He's going to find his way onto the field as a reserve, as a special teams guy, and he's a guy that'll give you everything he's got. Here's, I think, the next two picks are really high-value picks. Robert Longerbeam is one of those players that helped himself a lot in the pre-draft process. He's looked good in all of his all-star game reps. He's looked really good, obviously, in physical testing. Now, he's not a complete prospect. There are holes in his game. There are things he doesn't always do super well. Another guy whose eye discipline isn't always what you love. You'd like to see him get a little quicker, a little smarter, recognize things a little more consistently. But my gosh, is he an athlete? And he's not tiny. He's not huge, but he's not tiny. I think he sees the field a little bit as a rookie and could be a future starter. And where did the Ravens get him? 6th round, pick 212. Amazing. Then next, one of my favorite picks for the Steelers was Dante Kent. Now, he's the other corner from the MAC that I really liked. I had sort of circled amongst the MAC corners that I really, really felt strong things for. Here's what I like about Dante Kent. Another guy that plays football hard, right? Give me a guy that plays hard over a guy where I'm not sure what I'm going to get week in and week out, or even play in and play out. So those are some things I like about Dante Kent. There are things that I'm not as sold on about Dante Kent. And people keep bringing up things like level of competition. He's played up, right, in levels of competition, and it's looked good. Some of his best games have come against good players. So I'm not as concerned about that as some people are. My concerns about Dante Kent more have to do with, once again, some of the things he's been asked to do or not asked to do in the defense he's been in. And, of course, the Steelers are going to ask him to do some things he's not terribly familiar with schematically. But, right, a Harrisburg, Pennsylvania guy, 5'10" and a quarter. So some people think he kicks inside a nickel, 187 pounds, 31-inch arm length. Another reason some people kicks inside Kenner with the shorter arms, but he runs a 4.38 in the 40. So he's immediately one of the best athletes we have in the secondary. 4.38 shuttle, you'd like that to be a little lower. So sort of a straight line guy, 7.153 cone. That's about average, maybe slightly below average for a guy his size. But you like the 38.5-inch vertical. You like the 10.3 broad is probably dead on about average. The 14 bench reps, these are all from his pro day. Once again, for a guy with 31-inch arms, that's not amazing. But in his collegiate career, right, he played a lot, 53 games. And he's 23 years old. He'll turn 24 during the season, so a slightly older prospect. But 234 tackles, 6 of those were tackles for loss, so he's been used as a blitzer sometimes. He has a sack and a half, 46 pass deflections in his career, 2 interceptions. You'd like that to be slightly higher. 2 forced fumbles, tackler, right? And a fumble recovery around the football. If he finds his way to nickel, I actually think he might eventually, like I said, find his way to starting as well. Then we come to Micah Robinson from Tulane, the other Tulane corner, right? Who is a good football player, finds his way to the Packers. I think that the Packers have a type, right? I mean, I'm not telling anybody things they don't know. He's going to see the field probably in special teams initially. A kid from a powerhouse program in high school, went to Westlake in South Fulton County. Uh, was a guy that played a decent amount in this past year at Tulane. Was in all 14 games, 34 tackles, 6 passes defended, 2 interceptions. So ball skills are there. He did take one of those back for a pick 6. Watch that game. Clearly has had the ball in his hands. Was a cornerback and a return specialist previously. Was a team captain in high school. Led his team as high school in interceptions as a junior. Was a track and field guy. So once again, good athlete. 4.42 in the 40. I don't love the 4.55 short shuttle. So once again, a guy that's sort of straight line-ish. 7.43 cones, that's average. 35-inch vertical, that's about average. 10.3 broad. So his explosion numbers are average, right? So it means that he's not super powerful in the lower body, but he has, quick turnover, right? A guy who's got quick twitch, maybe not as powerful, as strong as you'd love, and once again, probably ends up playing nickel. He's in my top 8 in the nickels if you just rank nickels separately. And then the last of the, like I said, I'm going to pick up Travis Hunter later. Corey Black from Oklahoma State finds his way to the Giants. The Giants could just use guys that play football, and they could use everything. Corey Black's an intriguing player. One is I thought he might go even slightly earlier than this. He's got good size. He's 6 feet and a quarter. He's 192. Shorter arms at 31 inches. 4.35, right? Now it's his pro day, 4.35, so maybe it's more like 4.41 in the combine setting, but still that's really good for a guy his size. He helped himself a lot. 4.34 in the short shuttle, that's right about average for a guy his size. 7.01 short shuttle, that's once again, actually for a guy who's over 6 feet tall, that's actually a good number. 39-inch vertical, right? That's an athlete. 9.9 broad, that scares me though, right? Like, good news, bad news. 9.9 broad tells you either that he just has really bad technique in that, because I would expect almost a foot more than that from a guy as athletic as him, or, once again, he lacks some lower body pop. 15 reps on the bench is solid. I think, worst case scenario, he's a special teams asset who with the chance to become something as a defender. Then we come to Triqueze Bridges from Florida. A lot of these Florida guys are just upside picks. Not to say that they won't ever become something more than just, guys that run around and, just sort of find a way onto the field. But worst case scenario, he's another guy who's already 24, will turn 25 early in the season, right? On the 20th of September, he'll turn 25. So this is why he's going as late as he is, but he's a big corner. 6'2 and 1/8, 196, 33 and a quarter inch arms, 4.45 in the 40 at his pro day. Big, athletic, 4.39. That's a decent number. In fact, better than a decent number for a guy his size. In the short shuttle, 7.02. That's a really good number for a guy his size. 34.5-inch verticals, by about average. 10.7 broad, that's maybe slightly above average. So you're getting an athlete. And once again, probably a special teams asset. And it's, once again, it's 256 to the Chargers. I think even if he never becomes anything more than a special teams guy, it's still decent value. And then last but not least, before I deal with sort of the special case of Travis Hunter, is Kobe Minor from Memphis. And Kobe Minor is going to a good situation because the Patriots could use, everything, right? I thought they had the weakest roster in the whole NFL last year. He's a guy that started his career at Texas Tech, then Indiana, finishes up at Memphis. And once he gets to Indiana, where I really came into my radar in 2023, he had 29 tackles that year, 4 passes that were deflected. He had 9 starts. And then he goes to Memphis and has his best year, obviously 38 tackles, 7 tackles for loss. So that's a guy you can bring close to the line of scrimmage. 6 pass breakups, and he also forced 2 fumbles. Now, he's not a big ball skills guy in terms of catching the ball in the air, but he's around the football a lot. Another guy, maybe he's not very big. You maybe even project the safety, but 5'11 and 3/8, 188. Right, put on a 6 to 10 pounds if you want to project him forward to safety. 4.56 in the 40, which is okay. 4.54 short shuttle, that's not that great for a guy that size. 7.23 3-cone is actually a little concerning for a 188-pound athlete. But 36-inch vertical, that's above average. 10-foot broad, that's actually about average. And then 9 reps on the bench. He's 188 pounds. That's not terrible, but you might want a guy that, once again, maybe puts on a little weight, maybe moves to safety. He's probably, once again, primarily a special teamer. Now, last but certainly not least is Travis Hunter. He did no physical testing, so we don't know exactly. We have eyes. We know he's a good athlete. I think he would have been in the low 4.4s if he'd ever been tested. He has had a little trouble holding on to weight, at least in part, just because he plays so much football. 6 feet and 3/8, 188. You'd like to see him put on a few more pounds. Obviously, he's had a 30-game career, 171 receptions, 2,167 yards, and 24 touchdowns. So ball skill's not a question. If we're talking about him as a corner, right? A guy with a total of 9 interceptions in his career, and he only played 3 years, right? That's averaging 3 a year. 80 tackles. In his best tackling year, he had 36 total tackles, 25 solo tackles. That's not bad for the kind of player that he is. And obviously, he's managed to return one of those interceptions he caught for a touchdown back when he was at Jackson State. He's also forced, he's broken up 22 passes in his career. He's forced at least one fumble, one, and recovered one. So, things you love about him, right? I mean, his ball skills are elite. I don't think that's news to anyone that he has elite ball skills. He's an elite level athlete. He has enough size, though I'd like to see him get a little heavier. He's not always the world's best tackler, but he can tackle. And for me, the biggest thing is, some of this is fatigue related, but once again, go back to the Ike Ayamanor game. We always mention that game simply because he got beasted, right? If they kept going to Ayamanor, it would have been an even bigger game, right? And he wasn't on him all day. Big, strong receivers have bullied him in the past. Torrey Horton, though he wasn't on him all day, also had a couple of good reps against him. That's the one thing that you are concerned about because he's going to see big, strong receivers a lot going forward. So that is the corner group. I still think Travis Hunter will probably work out at either position just fine. At both, it's going to be, I guess we'll find out together how that works. But once again, Bill Carroll for Zinni62 Media. Please like and subscribe. And I will be talking about undrafted free agents and where they might fit into certain teams' rosters in the next series of videos. See you there.